First of all, I want to welcome everyone to VFI's webinar today with Heather Deggans, who's a vice president in the go-to-market Microsoft community, and she's been at Microsoft for 20 years. Heather, I hope you will kind of elaborate a little more on not only what you have been doing at Microsoft, but what you are doing, and then you can launch into your program. We are not really using slides today. This will be a very informal, fun, casual conversation amongst friends. We're going to drop stuff into the chat. Everybody on the call knows how this works. This is easy and fun. We'll see a lot of folks join us, throughout the call. But Heather, let me just turn it over to you and let's get started.
Yeah, thank you, David. And thank you guys for having me on the call today. It's great to see some familiar names and faces and then to meet others. So looking forward to connecting with you all. So as David mentioned, I've been at Microsoft for a long time. I think March will actually be 23 years. So it's been quite a while. I've done a lot of different roles in the time that I've been here. I've been in the US sub the whole time. Started out in Dallas for about 12 and a half years, and then now I reside in the Redmond area. I've done marketing, I've done sales, I've been a solution specialist, I've been a partner account manager, if you guys remember the acronym of PAM, as well as managed partner teams. And when I did that for about 8 years, I worked with every type of partners, disties and VARs and LARs. I know we all have new names, but now thinking about the old acronyms, local SIs, global SIs, ISVs, just really every sort of flavor. Hosters, I worked with a lot of hosters and managing those accounts. So a very extensive background with our partner community. I've also done chief of staff roles, so sort of those behind the scenes to see a little bit of how the sausage is made, which has been very enlightening. But when I look at the job that I'm in today, leading our go-to-market team within the partner organization, this was a job I very much sought after. It marries two of my functions really well. So marketing, I have extensive background in marketing and extensive background in partner. And so when we think about how do we connect with our partners, both the ones that we manage and sort of those more personal relationship, but I'm actually responsible for the entire ecosystem. So I'm looking at 66,000 partners across the US, and how do we have the health of those partners? I'm responsible for every segment, so SMB all the way to our largest, most strategic accounts and everything in between. That includes public sector, commercial, all of that, and then every solution area. I don't have direct responsibility for our consumer products, but everything that's enterprise-based, from our productivity tools to biz apps, cloud offerings, all of that. So really excited to be in this role. I've been in this role for about 6 months, so relatively new. We have a great organization there to support you in this ecosystem, and we're constantly looking for what are some new innovative ways that we can go to market. Some at scale, some more in that one-to-one relationship, but how do we know our customers? How do we make sure that we're driving the right message at the right time to the right audience? And while I know I'm preaching to the choir on this, it may sound simple, it's actually really hard. And there's a lot of messages in the market. And so how do we differentiate with our partners and the strength of this ecosystem to serve our customers? So really fun and exciting stuff, and looking forward to connecting with you guys today. So David, did you want me to just kick it off, or are you gonna?
Yeah. And listen, I get so excited when I see friends and faces that I haven't seen in a couple of weeks or months, but I want to welcome Anne Marie Sastry to the call. She is CEO of Amosite, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. We have a lot of interesting partners on the call, Heather, and I know you manage this whole system, but seeing these folks face to face and actually getting to work with them one-on-one is just a world that I hope we can all explore together. And folks like Emery and Dux and Carolyn and Marion and everybody. It's just, we have a lot of fun. I hope I can speak for the VFI crowd, but we like to engage. We're going to talk about that today. And I forgot to mention that the topic today is truly engagement on trying to make a more inclusive workforce. And as you go through this, Heather, your presentation, I may call on some of the folks that are already doing this through the VFI network. They're doing it on their own. They're teaching me how to do it. So we look forward to just hearing, more about your passions, what you are working on in this space, and how we can get these folks more engaged. So that's it.
Yeah, thanks, David. And as David mentioned, I want this to be a conversation. I don't have any slides, and it's very intentional. I'd love for this to be a little bit more fluid and a dialogue. So feel free to, just interrupt me, raise your hand, throw some stuff in the chat. This is definitely not a one-way dialogue. And I kind of left it a little unscripted today. What like the topic that David and I were conversing about is really talking about the digital divide and representing underserved communities, and what is Microsoft doing in partnership with our partner ecosystem to really try to make a difference here and lean in. And so I wanted to talk about a few programs that Microsoft as a company has, but then really also focusing on what the US flavor is, as I know we all care about that. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, so we'll spend quite a bit of time on that. And then I want to talk about a little bit of what my team is doing and areas that we would love to partner with you guys, as that's really super tangible. Because I think this issue or opportunity ahead of us, it impacts us all. And so, the first piece is digital divide, I think, is a very real problem. We all see it. It's across the entire world. We feel it in the US as well. We as Microsoft, so if I take it from the Microsoft perspective, we're very focused on the struggle that our underserved communities have in this world that's rapidly digitizing. How do they keep up? And, as I reflected on this, it starts at even a very early age. There's, even in elementary school, it starts there. Elementary school, some students have access to technology and internet, a whole bunch don't. And so when you start to think about this digital divide, it's not only when we become adults and we're thinking about the workforce and things like that, but it actually is rooted much, much earlier than that. And so we're working with our education team and our partners to address that piece of it, as well. So the whole thing end to end. I think we all have a role to play, especially with those historically underrepresented communities, making sure that they have access to skilling opportunities, career support, but also that sense of belonging that I think we all, hope to, lead with that inclusive environment. It's a huge focus of Microsoft as a company. And it's a big focus of Microsoft US as well. We're investing in building an inclusive workforce through a mix of initiatives that we're going to chat about today. As I mentioned, we as a company are trying to lean in. We're trying to include our partners in that and really joining us in that mission to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. So I'll take a pause. Jason, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so I'm involved in a couple of conversations around that digital divide, and the tech equity. And I'm stationed. I say stationed. I live in Louisiana. We are the most poverty state in the country. We're last in everything, education, you name it. And I know a bunch of people that are really working hard to turn that around. But I've challenged before, and I'm going to challenge again. I think there's when you look at Louisiana as a state, if you could turn that around, you could turn it anywhere around. And I know there's some challenges or some things that have been announced to launch in certain larger cities, but I think we definitely are missing the rural gap. I know a bunch of intelligent, hardworking people that would jump on anything that don't have the opportunity, and it's really around that poverty conversation. And so, anything that I could do to participate or help push that conversation forward, I think that from a poverty perspective, it's very inclusive as far as all races, and I just would love to move that forward. And even if we go from 50 to 49 and technology is the thing that drives it, it's a win in our area.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jason. And by the way, Louisiana is very near and dear to my heart. I was born in Dallas, but my husband was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and my in-laws live in Monroe, Louisiana. So we were literally just there for Thanksgiving. We go multiple times a year. So I love Louisiana and would love to do anything that we can to help there. By the way, that was a pretty disappointing LSU game last night. If you were unlucky enough to watch that bowl game, oh goodness. But anyways, yeah, I see your IMCP sign behind you. I think that's, when we start to think about this, there are ways and we have groups that we can start to pull together around. IMCP is a great one. So not just you, Jason, but how can we pull together a group of partners and really try to, put our muscle together to have a bigger impact and influence? So I appreciate that and definitely would love to talk to you and any others that are interested. The example I was going to give around Accelerate today is Atlanta, which I know is a very big city. It doesn't sort of have that same, it's rural versus, the metro scenario, rural being Louisiana. But I think there are some learnings that we could take and potentially go and put into some of these markets that are more on the rural side. So definitely appreciate you chiming up on that. Today specifically, there were 3 programs that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you're familiar with them. If you're not, would love to give you more information. We are going to, as we go, be dropping links into the chat so that you guys can go and get more information about it. First one is BAPG, so the Black Partner Growth Initiative that I'd love to chat with you guys about. I know several of you are already involved in there. The second one is the Clear Vision Impact Fund. This one may be a little bit less knowledgeable. It was relatively new to me when I got into role. And then the third is our Accelerate program, which is, again, one that I was just talking about. I'll use the Atlanta example, but many of the learnings could be applied to other places like Louisiana. Microsoft has taken a role in addressing the economic inclusion with a commitment to increase our Black representation in the ecosystem by 20% within 3 years. That's a pretty big statement when you think about how large our ecosystem is. And so, we've scaled up existing programs and launched new initiatives. These are not flip a switch and everything's solved. These are multi-year, multifaceted approach programs to basically building a more inclusive workforce. And again, addressing that digital divide with some of the underserved communities as well. All of this is in an effort to increase representation, strengthen the culture of inclusion within our partner community, expanding, basically to make sure that, we are, our companies alike represent the customers and the communities that we serve. Right now, it's not necessarily a great representation. And so we're trying to do these programs I'm going to talk to you about to basically support some of those underserved geographies. I can see Jennifer and Doug are putting some of the links in the window, so you can definitely learn more there. But basically, the first couple I'm going to talk about, BAPG and the Clear Vision Impact Fund, is really to support the growth of our Black-owned businesses and seeking to counter chronic underinvestment in minority-owned businesses through improved access to capital. So with that, I'll talk about Accelerate in a bit, but let me just kind of dive in there. We as a company recognize that nurturing a more diverse workforce means investing downstream. So it's not just only about that capital, but it's around the skilling needs that have to happen. So in 2020, Microsoft launched a global skills initiative that I hope you all have heard about. This was led from Satya and Brad Smith and others with the aim to train 25 million people worldwide with the skills that they need for in-demand roles today. So let me kind of go through that first, is the more broad piece of skilling and training, and then we'll dive into some of those programs that I just mentioned. So when I think about it from the broad perspective, that's really Accelerate. This is the U.S. implementation of that global initiative. So the 25 million that we want to train with the skills that they need, with what employers want right now, we've taken that mission and we've really tried to make it actionable from a US perspective. And so we're calling it Microsoft Accelerate, but it basically partners with local community leaders and business, providing no cost tech training to underserved communities. We have Microsoft's Community Skills Program, which also grants financial, it has financial grants and tech enablement to community-based nonprofits. So these partnerships not only provide that digital skilling, but also instill that confidence through a culture that embraces that diversity and inclusion and kind of gives people that, hey, you belong here. We're going to give you the training and we're going to try to connect you. You're going to do the work, but we want you to, again, have that sense of belonging and embrace the diversity and inclusion that we're all striving for. So I will say that the Accelerate program is very near and dear to my heart. I was privileged enough to be in the room in Atlanta, Georgia, when this idea was born. So as we go through it, we were in Atlanta, Georgia. We were meeting with the mayor's staff, the chief of police, members of city council, chamber of commerce was there, literally a giant boardroom where we were all, this was in the in-person days, pre-COVID, when we could all be at a boardroom together. And there were two primary problems that the folks in Atlanta were telling us about. One was the significant unemployment rates impacting the citizens of Atlanta and the surrounding areas. And then also an issue of large amounts of companies based in Atlanta that really could not find qualified workers to fill their positions. And so, our former Microsoft US President, Kate Johnson, said, hey, what if we could help you with both of those problems? And, of course, instantly people start leaning in, their ears perk up. And the idea was born to work with major cities, using Atlanta as sort of our prototype for digital skilling for citizens. And then also working with the Chamber of Commerce to host job fairs with local businesses that needed these qualified workers once they had those desired skills. And so it was a big effort to identify, market, recruit to those people that wanted to realize they needed some skilling to be able to meet the demands of the job market. And then it was a whole nother effort to say, once we put them, you gave them the access to this skilling, that connect them to those employers. Because it's one thing to have the skills, but if I don't know how to connect to the employers, it doesn't do me a whole lot of good. And so that was sort of the finishing touches to make sure that we're connecting the two efforts. So Microsoft Accelerate is really all about amplifying free training that was already there. And resources within communities and making it accessible and not hard to find. A lot of times it's there, but people don't know how to get to it. So the Start to Finish program provides subsidized, upskilling and career change resources, career planning, hiring support. So it's really, hopefully, what we desire is that end-to-end view. And we're also trying to look at all of the different audiences. So on the resources, there are on the site, there's some for small business owners. How do they build digital skills? For students, how to be prepared for their first job. For those looking to change careers, how do they think about that? For educators looking to integrate technology into their classrooms to start that technology journey even earlier. Atlanta was our first pilot program. We've since added 5 cities so far in the formal Accelerate. But to the discussion earlier, we can take a lot of this blueprint and we can actually go and put it into other geographies, maybe not as robust, where we have corporate sponsors and things like that, but the blueprint's there. We just need to go and have those discussions in markets, and ideally we're doing it with our partners, not just Microsoft and those local government officials and things like that. So across the US, the demand for digitally skilled workers is an all-time high. Obviously you guys all know that. But we also have companies that are struggling to identify enough capable applicants. So, we're trying to look to this to build diverse and inclusive workforces that better, as I mentioned earlier, better reflect those communities and the customers we serve. David, I'll get to you in one second. Let me just wrap up with one point here. As we look at this growing talent pool, and as we are focused on this digital skilling in partnership with many of you, we do need to have a process even outside of these 5 cities that I talked about that can connect people. So Microsoft also developed what's called Career Connector. It's a new service that connects job seekers historically underrepresented in the industries to tech and tech-enabled jobs across Microsoft's network of customers and partners. I know we're experiencing a talent shortage. I've heard from many of you, our partners, you're experiencing it as well. Our customers are experiencing this. So this connector can actually benefit us all. We are aiming to match 50,000 skilled workers with growing companies. So it's an effort that we can all lean into. So David, I see your hands up.
Listen, and I'm sorry, I love to kind of jump in here because I see a lot of connections with these friends that are already doing some of these things. And one I would like to call on, first of all, if one of your folks can put in the 5 cities, I believe VFI can help you connect and engage more deeply in those 5 cities. But I want to introduce Frank Valdivieso, who is an amazing advocate in this space that you were just talking about. So Frank, can I give you 1 minute of time to kind of just meet Heather and tell folks what you're doing?
Yeah, so Heather, I'm super excited to be here today and listen to what you're talking about. Again, the BCPA, the Black Channel Partner Alliance, we were actually created, this organization was created in the Microsoft community in response to, all the social unrest. And Microsoft has just been an amazing, amazing partner. And we've been working very hard to basically identify and help other Black-owned tech companies grow. And where there's strong alignment here is there are a couple of our goals that are really in alignment here. Number one is that we do want to create 800 tech jobs, right? And through that process, that's going to happen because we're helping our partners to basically grow their businesses through access to opportunities. And we've had so far a great relationship with Microsoft Philanthropies and Darrell Booker's program. So that's just been amazing. And then the other thing is we do have a goal to perform 1,000 digital transformation projects for community-based organizations as well. So would definitely love after this call to kind of see how we can get more lift out of these programs and get our partners more engaged in these programs. Because the other goal that we have is we do want our partners, as they're growing, that we are hiring from our communities and providing opportunities. And one of the things I know that we've personally done is we're leveraging apprenticeships to provide opportunities to candidates that, they're not going to go a traditional 4-year degree, or they're not going to get a traditional 4-year college degree, but they have the aptitude and the aptitude and the attitude to be very successful in our field. And I think that's also another opportunity for partners throughout our ecosystem to really leverage apprenticeships as a way to engage and bring more of these underserved communities into our industry, if you will.
That's fantastic, Frank. Would definitely love to talk to you offline and to make sure that we're complementing each other's efforts there.
And Heather, we talked just a few words yesterday about allyship. Do you want to? I don't want to leapfrog your presentation, but Frank just mentioned mentors and allies. Is that something you are prepared to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So 100%. So Microsoft is really focused on this notion of allyship. So from Satya and Kathleen Hogan, who leads our HR program, all the way down through our 100 and however many thousand employees that we have, there's this notion around allyship and how do we, even if you're not a part of that group or you don't identify with that group, how can you be an ally to that group? Name the group, doesn't matter, whatever it is. And so we're really focused on how can we learn more about various groups of employees and people in the community and things like that, and how can we help understand sort of what are the things that they experience on a day-to-day basis, those sort of lived experiences. How can we support? How can we be an ally? We're doing a lot of that through our employee resource groups, so our ERGs as we call them. So how do we, maybe, so we have a group called BAM, Blacks at Microsoft. So maybe, you're not necessarily, a Black at Microsoft, but you want to be an ally to that group and you want to help that group and you want to, connect with folks in that group to, again, bring in talent either internally to externally connect to different places to, support those folks. We also have, all different types. So we have Indigenous people, we have, all different women at Microsoft. We've got all different sort of flavors and ERGs. I think we've got to have at least 30 or so by this point. And so making sure that we have that opportunity to connect and provide that allyship. And if, it could be, things that are on a grander stage, or it could even be just day-to-day things. You're in a meeting, somebody, says something off the wall that, kind of could be a derogatory comment. How do you stand up in that meeting, and how are you an ally to that person? And, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It just has to be, sort of like, support, or, in the moment, or even talking to them afterwards. And so trying to really look at internally within Microsoft, how do we learn and practice this allyship? And then actually, how do we take it out into our community with, our personal lives and our professional lives with our customers and partners and things of that sort. And I'll get into a little bit more on, what we're thinking about diversity and inclusion, and that allyship obviously is a huge tie to that. But when I, sort of take it back a notch and talk about those 3 programs and what we're trying to do to, lean in with our community, the first one we talked about was Accelerate. The second one I had mentioned, which again, I think is a little less known, maybe it was just me, maybe you guys are all very versed, but is the Clear Vision Impact Fund. So Clear Vision Impact Fund was formed by Siebert Williams Shank and Company, but it actually had an initial investment from Microsoft of $25 million seed investment. The fund has a target of $250 million, so that's great. And it is dedicated to investing growth and operating capital in small and medium-sized businesses, with an emphasis on minority-owned businesses, which I think is a big key. So it addresses really a couple of different things. How do we help those small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, really get the capital that they need to be able to grow and be successful in this incredibly competitive market? Also, how do we really help to put some fusion into our minority-owned businesses? And the objective of the partnership between Microsoft and SWS is to mitigate the deficits in capital access to that minority-owned businesses often encounter. And hopefully with that, having a positive effect on the companies and the communities in which they operate. So it's it's a little bit newer. It launched in August 2020. As of now, or I'll say back March, so not now, March of last year, the fund grew to $100+ million. So well on the way, through donations from Microsoft and investments from our partners and our customers and things like that. The fund is growing, and the funds are being used again to help those small and medium business and primarily minority-owned businesses. Finally, when we talk about the 3 that I had mentioned earlier, BAPG is one. It's another program, Microsoft obviously is very involved in. Microsoft US specifically is very involved in, but I know many of you from our partner community are involved in. And first of all, thank you, and we appreciate it. BAPG basically stands for Black Partner Growth Initiative, and it's basically setting the framework for delivering programmatic elements that can be replicated globally for minority communities. So we're really focused on it from a US, but it's not a US only. It's building a blueprint that we can go and take. But and all of you can be involved. All of you can join this initiative. We can support you to help engage the Microsoft Partner Network, accelerate your growth through greater connections into this, and develop strong partnerships just across the board through our ecosystem, and giving access to capital. That is another piece that is this. It's not just about the money, though. It's making those connections, and it's really giving access to all of the resources that we have, and really doubling down on these Black-owned organizations within our partner ecosystem. So participants, basically, they receive personalized, so that's the key. It's not just one size fits all, but personalized guidance to really take full advantage of the Microsoft partner programs. Businesses can, they can get aid, resources that can aid in their success by personalized consultants with dedicated advisors and tools to help jumpstart marketing, thinking about their sales models, things like that. As I mentioned, I know many of you are already involved with this initiative, but I did want to highlight one partner. A great example is Safe PC EdTech. So they partner closely with the other programs that I mentioned before, Accelerate and Career Connector, as well as a lot of our employee resource groups, and basically, all of this pulling it together to provide skilling, job placement, mentor opportunities for program participants. So making sure that we can sort of start to connect all of these pieces that I mentioned. We love examples like that. I know that's not the only example. I know many of you on this call have great examples of really being able to pull together BAPG and Accelerate and some of the other resources that we have.
Heather, I
Awesome.
just want to jump in. I want to thank you for calling out Safe PC. That's our friend Medina Ali, who is actually, someone sent me a note that she's actually doing a training today, could not join this call, but she's a great example of how we are moving forward with this and providing those resources, and how others can also, try to get involved. The last thing I would say, Heather, we have a lot of partners on the call, but we also have representatives of larger groups. And I don't think Chaitra is on the call today. I see Nyasha just joined. But we have folks like Women in Tech, Women in Cloud, and one of my new favorite groups is the Microsoft Alumni Network. Ali Spain and Anna and Crystal. There's a huge network of Microsoft alums that are ready to jump in and engage in these programs. They had an amazing fundraising year in 2021. They raised like $500,000,
Wow.
which they are giving back to the various communities within Microsoft. So I want to help you you and your team tap into some of these groups, which you're already doing, but I want to help drive that a little bit further with you and your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to connect to Ali, you, and others, definitely.
And there's Ali right there. Ali, thank you for joining today. You have been a great inspiration for all of us, and we look forward to really, creating a stronger partnership. Thank you very much.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, Ali.
Awesome. And Ayasha, I see your hands up. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, just one thing real quick. So I co-founded the Black Channel Partner Alliance with Frank. I think one thing that people don't understand for context setting is how dire the state is of Black partners in the channel, right? So I think some context setting is critical because, I think there's, prospects of backlash by people thinking, why is this group getting a particular focus? Right. But I don't think people necessarily understand that, for most of these partners, they're trending, $50,000 to $100,000 if they're lucky. If we can identify over 50 gold partners that are Black owned, that would be a miracle. Out of, 64,000 in the US. So I think there's some context setting for these, before a discussion about these programs, so people have an understanding. Because I think with the partner ecosystem, the first thing is, well, why don't we have access to these types of resources, or there's preferential treatment being given to a group? So I think as the dialogue expands, having that context setting, I think, is critical so people understand what the state of things actually is.
That is a terrific point. And through growing these efforts in the focus area, we've done a lot of research in partnership with you, and I've looked, just the amount of Black-owned partners is incredibly low. So when you think about it from quantity, it's incredibly low, and that was our goal. Satya, our CEO, has said we want to increase that by 20% in 3 years. Yeah. So that's going in. And then to your point, even companies and partner organizations that are out there today are struggling. And so how can we give them the boost that we have resources? If we focus our efforts, how can we give them the boost? So great. And we will make sure that we're providing that context setting in the future. Marion, I see your hands up.
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you actually for that earlier point and that statistic. If there is, I had a great call actually yesterday with Daniel. I came at BPGI yesterday and would encourage anybody on this call to reach out to him. He's just a wonderful resource and has some presentation materials. But if there are other facts and stats like that that BCPA has or Microsoft or BPGI that we can share socially, I think that that could help elevate that conversation, because to my mind, that pushback or that backlash is just noise that we can address pretty quickly if those of us here at VFI can engage socially and just put out some of those fast facts, the did you knows, and anything. I think most of us here, all of us here, would probably be glad to do that on social. And Dux is a social marketing machine, so I know he'll have some good ideas too.
That's great. Yeah, I believe that we have a lot of that. There may be other areas we're like, well, what if we had this, and we can go back and look at that, but we do have a healthy set of data. And I think the next piece of it is not only socializing it within our ecosystem, but also talking to our customers about it. Because a lot of our customers are like, how do I support minority-owned businesses? And if we can really raise the awareness of these programs and the organizations that we're supporting through these efforts, I think, all goodness there. So great point there in the outreach and making it data-based, again, to the point of this is why we're doing it, and we are in a bit of a dire situation in some of these particular areas. So that's a little bit of the corporate sort of formalized programs of things that we're doing. I kind of wrap up with we just in general recognize the need for a broader cultural shift. And, a lot of that just starts with the, focus on an emphasis on the allyship, focused on diversity and inclusion. And some of that even starts with the basics of just training and understanding diversity and inclusion. And so we at Microsoft have created a series of diversity and inclusion learning paths that are accessible. Our employees are using them, and we've made them accessible to our partners. So we sort of have a shared language that we can use. For any of you guys that participated and include or watched the virtual sessions, we brought together some of the top minds in academia, law, social justice, and human behavior for conversations around diversity and inclusion. So really trying to broaden it. And I do want to hit on the point of, diversity is incredibly important, but we cannot forget that the inclusion actually is really, really important. And I've talked about this many, many times, and I know a lot of you share this perspective. We can engage with diverse audiences, but we actually have to get really strong on that inclusion piece. So, you can't, in my opinion, just go hire a diverse workforce. You need to include them in the conversation. When we look at these stats are a bit old, these were pre-COVID, but Microsoft has put a big focus on diverse hiring. And what we were seeing is a lot of those diverse hires were leaving within the first 2 years. They were like, great, enjoyed my time at Microsoft, I'm out and I'm going somewhere else. And so we started to do exit interviews to say, why are you leaving? And it came down to that the inclusion. They're like, you hired me for my diverse experiences, my diverse point of view, but then you neglected to really include me in on the conversation and to use the assets that you hired me for, and so we were like, wow, how can we actually really focus on that muscle of inclusion? And some of it is technology based, especially in this world of, I don't know about you guys, but we're still work from home. And so, I'm working from my home office here. And so a lot of it, we need to rely on technology for the inclusion, but it's not led with Microsoft technology. It's not led with a technology pitch or sales pitch. It's really around how can we have diverse workforces that reflect our customers and our communities, but then how can we practice inclusion? Technology is one set, but it's really around things like the ERG groups, things like these initiatives like we have around the Black Partner Growth Initiative and things like that, and making sure that, we've got a big focus there. I already talked about the allyship, so I won't go through there. In that, the content library, which hopefully somebody will put in the chat, is Microsoft's inclusion journey content, it actually focuses on D&I, and it actually focuses a lot on that allyship. And so making sure that, people understand sort of how you can demonstrate some of those things in the focus there. So, and it's got stories about integration, stories about faith, privilege, pressure to conform, empathy. There's all types of topics that you can kind of go through and can look at and can share with your teams. I won't necessarily go through a ton more because I know we've got about 15 minutes left, but there was one other partner that I wanted to highlight, if that's okay, David. We have a partner, Udesic. They're helping really, you're partnering with us to really help close that digital divide by equipping students with the skills they need to succeed in science and technology-driven future. So I've talked a bit about through the Accelerate program, how we're focusing on communities and job placement. But remember at the beginning, I started with the divide starts even, very early in, elementary school and things like that. And so, we have partners across the board that are leading through this journey. Udesic is doing a great job in really focusing on those students and, some of the socioeconomic inequalities. They actually created a program called the Aspire program, which provides STEM education to marginalized students and their families, which is really cool. They provide financial assistance, mentorship, developing digital solutions for organizations. They really are focused on that STEM connection. And so Udesic's doing some great work there and, really looking at our students and our community and driving that inclusivity as well. So the last thing I'll mention, and I kind of went through it, but basically, not only thinking about it from a Microsoft US perspective, but also thinking about it, or sorry, Microsoft company perspective, and then also a Microsoft US perspective. In my role today, I'm actually trying to make it real within my teams, because it's great when you talk about a large organization, or Microsoft US is 10,000 people, but I think we need to each practice it each day. So some of the things that we're doing within our go-to-market organization. We have set aside, this is something that's being sponsored from Microsoft US as a whole. We've set aside 1 day a month for learning days. We in my go-to-market organization are very serious about this. It's not just a free day. It's not just a day that you actually then just go book meetings over, but it's a day that's a bit sacred, and it's okay to say no to all meetings and to really focus on learning. And it doesn't have to be just technical training. We're providing suggestions proactively to our employees around D&I training. So going through that content library and pulling out a couple of the things that we think are, really impactful. It's also about skills training. We're marketers. How do we go and build our marketing expertise or sales expertise or things like that? As I mentioned before, we're making a very intentional effort to hire diverse talent. We're trying to identify new areas to connect with those candidates. When we start to pull in the Microsoft networks and we ask each employee to recommend folks, we're trying to do that to create the diverse footprint of our candidates. We would love help from you guys. And we want to share those candidates with you because we're all trying to do this. And then, as I mentioned before, really working hard on that inclusion aspect and making sure that we have that. Last thing I'll mention is, we focused, and I mentioned this a bit earlier, on the employee resource groups and either identifying with that group or participating as an ally. And the big why of it all is, at Microsoft and Microsoft US, and then also in my group, we're striving to be a diverse company with an inclusive culture. And we want to make sure that our own team reflects that and that we can empower our solutions and our partners and our customers through that. So I think that's about all I had, David. I'd love to open it up for other perspectives or questions.
Heather, these folks know me pretty well. I'm chomping at the bit here. I've got so many ideas to kind of execute on your vision. And we all know that, it's great to have a lofty vision and talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk. And I wanted to point out, Dux dropped something in the chat, and it's kind of I haven't read it, Dux. I've seen it before, but it's a case study of how they basically unlock diversity practice. Dux, do you just want to talk about this? I'm trying to inspire others to possibly do the same type of thing.
Yeah, no, thank you, David. So just quick thing. I mean, certainly Microsoft has phenomenal resources and assets around this, but oftentimes as a partner, and certainly there's small organizations than us, often the question is, we don't have resources to do this. We don't have dedicated people. We don't have a D&I team. We're busy. And how do we juggle all this? So we did it. We don't have any dedicated teams to do this, but we formalized about 2-3 years ago, and it's thriving. It's going really well. So yeah, so I just shared the playbook we have, and I've spoken with other partners as well, and encouraging them to do it. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-people organization, 1,000-people organization, or Microsoft-sized organization. It can be done. So if there's any way I can support and help, complementing what Microsoft or what Heather has shared, I'm happy to do so.
Dux, thank you.
That's great.
As you know, you always inspire me. I know I'm a huge fan. I hope I'm not showing fanboy crush, but you are just amazing and awesome for what you do. The other person that just left the call, I was hoping to pick on him, was Mark Hoppers. Mark is with Avanade, one of our very large partners. And Avanade, I had lunch with Mark recently in DC. It was one of my first lunches, an in-person lunch with a human being in a long time. We had a great lunch, and I said, Mark, what's the biggest challenge you face? And it's something Heather had already said earlier. And he said, it's finding talent. We cannot find the talent. So Mark and I had a great conversation about digital skilling and how we could try to just take the wrapper, Dux mentioned not having the teams or the experts or whatever, just taking the ready-made programs and inserting those into Avanade's ecosystem. Some of these ecosystems, as you know, Heather, it's not just the customers, it's the vendor base. Blackbaud, AvePoint, Avanade, some of these vendor bases are, in the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people, and they're all tech people. And if we can tap into that, I think we have a good chance of hitting those metrics and just, going to scale, as we like to say at Microsoft. So having said that, I don't want to monopolize this conversation. I want to save time for questions. If anybody else, I do want to point out, Carol Lynn Grow is just a fantastic advocate. We have talked a lot about diversity and inclusion, but Carol Lynn was one of the first people that came to me and said, we need to do something for women. I have this thing in Colorado I want to do and promote. So Carol Lynn, thank you for being an inspiration just for women in tech and getting people involved in technology and getting that going. Carol Lynn, do you have anything to say?
Well, I wanted to comment on Dux's outline of what he's proposing we do leading up to Inspire, kind of putting a plan in place with the VFI team. I'd love to organize kind of a webinar, a group kind of conversation for everybody in VFI to plan for that and see if there's some things we can do to really get the ball rolling. I know our organization is attempting to triple in size, so accessing and leveraging all of these amazing resources and talent that is hard to find and hard to access would be an awesome initiative as well. So I'd love to share notes with everybody who's leveraging these resources that we've been hearing about from Heather today.
And let me just say, I would like to, I know I keep jumping in here, but I would like to connect many of the folks with either Dave or someone else on your team, or perhaps with you, on just how we keep, driving these programs to ground and making sure that we're getting some traction. So I would love to follow up with a lot of the folks on this call, whether they're 2 employees or 10,000. I think there's folks these folks are ready to roll, and they've proven themselves time and time again. So thank you, everybody.
And then I see Harry has had his hand up for a while.
Oh, yes. Sorry,
Harry.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you some work I've done. I've been involved in this area for several years. We always have a charity at SMB Nation, so it's Digitunity. Do I have the right to show my screen. It's a dashboard that's data driven that I think you guys might like.
I think so. Why don't you give it a try?
Yeah, we'd love to see it.
Oh, there. Okay, there
you
we
go.
go. And I'll put the link in. And David, you remember Sue from Digitunity? We
Yes.
had a meeting. Okay, let me know if you can see the gap map.
We can. Oh, Louisiana. Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is for all 50 states, and this is data dealing with the divide and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so what we did, and apologies in advance, we used Tableau instead of Power BI because Tableau volunteered, but go find your county. And like right here, Jason, you're down here in Louisiana. So no computers, 14%. But if you go to the upper right, it goes all the way up to 60%. And this is just really fascinating as you get your head into this area and allows you to target certain geographies that are more needy than others. So what I'll do is I'll put that in chat. I just wanted to show you guys, and let me
That's
turn off.
really powerful information.
Yeah, it took a while. It didn't do it on its own.
I
Could
imagine so.
Could I set you up with Heather's team to kind of dive a little deeper into what you're doing there?
Yeah, please do. And
Because
folks,
you've
I'm
got
putting it in
work.
chat. And
Yeah.
if you can't, if it's Digitunity, it used to be the National Christina Foundation. Carolyn Goals, if anyone knows her out of Building 121, sits on the board of directors of
Great.
it.
Because
Yeah,
what
I just put Dave Fisk email in there. He would be the best person to connect with on this. As I mentioned, he's on the call, so he will have the context. He's the one that actually pulls in our entire ecosystem. So he's the person on my team that leads the entire ecosystem and has responsibility for that. So this would be a great discussion. And as I mentioned, I'd love to be involved as well.
And Heather,
Yeah, excellent.
I want to say, Harry, I want to say thank you to you, but Heather, I really want to thank you for your time. I'm a bit of a stickler on ending on time in honor of people's time commitments. Thank you for doing this today. This has been fantastic. This is right up our alley on VFI's mission. So,
hey, David, do we have time for one group photo before we
of
go?
course, absolutely.
I think that the team was all wanting to get a group photo. If you guys, if you are comfortable, would love for
Yes.
you to come on camera.
On
And
camera.
then smile pretty and we'll take a picture.
Yeah. And while we're doing that, I know Eddie Bader has joined from IMCP. He's one of our great advocates.
Oh, we love Eddie.
Yeah.
Hey, Heather. Hey, David.
Hey, guys.
All
They're
right,
waving.
Jennifer, I'm assuming
All
we
right.
got the picture. Hey, Eddie. All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. Got to
Thanks,
split.
guys.
Bye-bye.